All right. So, for those of you listening to the podcast, How to Switch to a Tech Career in Your 30s and 40s, tonight is a special night because I've never had a guest. Now, if you've been listening for a while, you've heard me ask for guests, but none of you have filled out an application. There is someone who filled out an application, and you're going to meet him tonight. And that's what we're going to chat about. Welcome to How to Switch to a Tech Career in Your 30s and 40s. It's the podcast where we love to get excited and down to brass tacks, talking about the real things that help you move the needle when you switch from any other career into a high-tech or IT career. And this is where we're going to discuss the real hints, tips, tricks, and the methods and the protocol that help you switch into a real tech career. So welcome. All right, so now let's talk with the very first guest on our podcast, and I am super excited to talk with a gentleman named Kenny. And Kenny, would you introduce yourself, where you're from, what you do, and pronounce your last name for me?
Certainly. Thanks for having me, Brooks. So it's Kenny Dubroff. It's actually it's pronounced phonetically. Well, everything's pronounced phonetically, I guess. It's spelled phonetically as well. A lot of people try to throw accents in there. It's just Dubroff. That's it. Real simple.
Dubroff. Okay.
That's it. Yeah.
And the first name, Kenny. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Just
You
kidding.
got it.
And whereabouts in the world, like a general location or time zone, are you?
I am in, I don't know if it's still considered a tech hub. I think it is, but it's kind of a dying tech hub. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's been one of the largest tech hubs for a very long time, but things are changing.
Things are changing. Yeah, everywhere. But I would say, I'd agree with you. I'm in the Midwest, Minneapolis area, and certainly you're in more of a tech hub than Minneapolis. So that's pretty cool. And we're on the podcast because, you work in tech. What is your role, or what do you do in tech these days mostly?
So I am an iOS developer, technically a senior iOS developer. I think that just means I'm old. Um, I also dabble in mobile CI/CD, so mobile DevOps, if you will.
Dabbling in that, as in, did you pick it up on your own? Is that something you got interested in, picked up, or were you forced to do that by an employer and then you begrudgingly moved forward?
Let's see, who was it that recommended that I start doing DevOps? I think his name was Brooks.
Was that me?
It was. It
Oh, I'm
was.
so sorry.
So now it's fine because it really aligns with kind of the way I do things. I really appreciate automation. I like having good processes in place, even though I'm kind of bad about using them sometimes. I appreciate that they're there, and I appreciate when people use them, and I try to use them as much as possible,
Very
as
good.
prescribed.
As prescribed. Yeah, the people who are in tech, some of them went through a college education that squarely planted them outside of a tech company with no job or chance of getting a job. And then you have other people who, a little bit after the college years, whether or not they went to college, will be trying to get in the doors of a tech company, and they eventually do, and they learn some things along the way. Do you have a mini story or kind of an origin story of yourself of how you got into tech?
Sure. That's I can go pretty long on that, so I'll try to make it mini.
I
It
think,
started, no.
yeah, the people listening here, I think we will be very interested in hearing this. So say as much as you want after I cut you off. Okay, now you can go.
Okay, great. So my journey into tech started when I was very young. I wasn't born with a computer in my hand, but we had an Apple, I think it was a 2E, when I was 5, 6 years old. And I was just always very interested in it, probably because my parents were, and I wanted to do whatever they were doing. But it became more than that very quickly. It became this kind of little world that I had control of. And that was just very fascinating to me. And I wanted to know how that world was created, and I wanted to be part of that. It just right away, I kind of knew what I wanted to do. And then I spent the next 30 years kind of wandering around thinking I didn't know what I wanted to do. And it was really a confidence thing for me where it was obvious. I was really good at tech. People kept telling me I was. I kept taking tech jobs, but shying away from being a programmer. I kind of convinced myself that I wasn't good enough to be a developer or programmer, whatever you want to call it. I wasn't good enough to write code, basically. That seemed very far out of reach. So
Then did
that's
you,
kind of where I started. Yeah,
so to recap that, you had, did, did you at a very young age, did you identify that you were really interested in tech or sort of technology nerdy things, I would call them? Or did it just seem like that was just what you did? Like, was that normal to you, or did you kind of, I think of kids who peel off from their friendships to just sit on their computer, but were you more of a, this is just the way you're built, you just gonna get interested in these things?
definitely. It's definitely the way I was built. It was also ingrained into me. I skipped a really interesting part of my origin story, where when I was 6, my mom was working at a college, or maybe I was a little older, but she was working at a college, at a tech college, Heald College, and a professor had come to the house just to kind of visit with me and my mom for a little while, and he taught me how to write a line of code, and I wrote "Hello World" in BASIC on an Apple 2E or 2GS, whichever it was at the time. We had upgraded it, but I'm sorry, I forgot your question.
Yeah, no, you answered it. That was pretty amazing
Good.
if you didn't remember the question, but you answered it exactly. Part of your
Well, good,
origin
good.
story was, it seems like you, I mean, your mom was helping you get introduced to tech. It wasn't a rebellion thing such as, well, I'm going to play my games and sneak it in while my parents aren't watching. It was more like your environment encouraged this. Is that right?
Yes,
To
my
a degree.
environment encouraged it um, to a point. So
Mm-hmm.
I was given the tools that I needed and introduced to people that could help me, but there wasn't a lot of opportunity or encouragement. I encouraged myself a lot to continue in what I enjoyed. Um, and there did definitely become a rebellious phase where I was playing video games all the time and, staying away from friends and family and being kind of proud of that. Like I'm a gamer and this is just how we are. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's understood. What kept you learning along the lines of computers and technology? Was there a vein of that kept you on track, or was it just hit and miss random learnings along the way?
So that's part of the this is just the way I am kind of part of the story where I just have always loved learning about the latest and greatest technological craze, or not even craze, just the latest advancements. I want to know what's going on with tech and be right there with it. I've always wanted to be a pioneer, and I'm just kind of starting to try and pioneer some things now.
Hmm. Okay. You said just now, are you having some eye-opening experiences or epiphanies or changes in your life where you're doing some new things you never thought you'd do? What do you mean by now?
It's the whole generative AI thing that I'm sure everybody's tired of hearing about. But it's just it just seems to open so many doors in my mind. I feel like I can talk about it all day, but then I try to and I can't say anything. There's there's just so much content in my mind, and I sound kind of crazy when I start linking it to things that other people aren't really into.
Interesting, interesting. Generative AI is opening some doors for you to pursue, make some things come real that are in your mind. Is that happening? I'm not trying to feed you with lines. I'm just trying to figure out what you're saying. Here, say what
Yeah,
I
no,
want you to
good.
say.
Feel free to feed me with lines as well, and I will say what I want to say
Good,
anyway.
good. I'm glad you will.
So yeah, I started a company called Infinite IQ Tech, which you're actually part of. Um, and the idea that I have is really going all in on what can AI do for people, for businesses, for people trying to get into software development. Um, I see AI opening a lot of doors for a lot of people that didn't have opportunities before.
That's good. Yeah. You mentioned that I'm a part of that. Um, I am, you invited me to be a part of that, and I have taken a role that's more of a, hey, check in once in a while and see how things are going, to maybe approve if CodeRabbit doesn't just shove it through, approve a pull request. And I have watched you um, take take ideas and make them happen in a very, very quick time. Um, and I often put emojis that indicate head exploding because I don't understand what you're doing, but I get what you're doing, but I don't understand the details. And so it seems like something is, for our listeners, um, what makes a person a good creator or developer in tech. For you, you know something's built in, but, and I want to get back to something about your confidence, but all along something's been built into you, but at the same time you haven't always explored all the options. um and that's where a lot of our listeners tend to be, is just a little, not just hesitant, but also not sure what to do next, but also then hesitant because you don't know what to do. And it's a vicious cycle. Is it vicious cycle or vicious circle? Tell me I was right.
You know,
Vicious cycle.
I've heard it, I've heard it both
You're
ways,
going to
but I
be
think
political
vicious
about that, aren't you?
cycles.
Nice. I like that answer. I've heard it both ways.
No, I
So,
think vicious cycles the more accepted answer.
okay. Yeah. And I appreciate your levity here and openness here. So, if I could go back to, you're now exploring AI, generative AI, and that's not boring to you, right? I take it.
No, no, no,
Okay.
no, not at all, not one bit. No, I have so much fun with it all the time. I like to argue with ChatGPT just to see, you know, it'll argue back.
That's so good. Would you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about your confidence building trek, or your confidence building room? Um,
Yes.
maybe to frame the question, or you're talking a little bit. Talk a little bit about before you had confidence. What did that look like? What were the thoughts in your head? What did you do or not do? And then you started to get some confidence. How did you get that? And what did that look like?
Sure, sure. Yeah, I have had a somewhat encouraging environment. You know, some relatives have encouraged me in saying, you know, you're really good at tech and things. As I was growing up, even like helping my grandma program her VCR and you know, things of that nature. If any of your listeners know what a VCR is.
I'm sure they
um,
do.
I'm sure some of them do. Yeah.
30s and 40s,
Right.
probably.
Yeah, some of them do. At any rate, so I had that, but I always had this at the same time. I had this inner voice that was just telling me, you aren't good enough. Like, you can't, sure, you're good at programming a VCR. You can't make a video game. You can't make a program. You can't, write this language or that language or do this thing, or there was always this thing I couldn't do that kind of stopped me from trying to do anything. And so the biggest thing for me really in getting my confidence started was just hammering away at doing something. When I started learning iOS development, I looked online for tutorials, and I'd start doing them and kind of realize this isn't going to get me anywhere doing these cookie cutter tutorials over and over again. And that just kind of led me down this path of making the tutorials my own and changing a thing here and there to see what would happen. And as I started doing things and seeing the results, that's when the confidence started to come. Like, the guy who wrote this tutorial said this thing was going to be hard, but I got it right away. So maybe I'm okay at some of this stuff, and I can keep exploring, and this is okay. And
Interesting.
there comes a point in that though where you're banging your head against the wall because you don't understand something, you don't know how to do something. And that was kind of a shift for me too, where when that would happen before, I would kind of just stop, like, this is too hard. I need to refocus, do something else, uh, something along these lines. Like, this was fun, but yeah, it's not for me. But there comes this point where I just start pushing through and start thinking, for me, what's outside of the box, because I was very self-taught. I was doing
Mm,
all these
yeah.
tutorials.
Yeah, I can
Like I
tell.
said, just kind of trying to make things my own. But there came this point where I realized that I can't do this all on my own. I can get to a certain point, but I need some help with first of all, I don't know what I don't know, especially in the professional world. So I'm doing these cookie cutter tutorials that aren't going to get me anywhere. Um, so I decided to go to a coding school, a coding boot camp, as Lambda. Lambda was the name of the school at the time. Yeah, and
So, yeah.
that opened new doors from there. So sorry, go ahead.
No, you said interesting thing about the tutorials. A lot of people come to me for help and they have done nothing but, well, some people have done nothing. It's been years and they just have a dream. Other people come to me and they've done tutorials, but you said something a little different. When you did tutorials, you started to make them your own, you said. Can you can you expand on that? Just expound on it, basically. Just a little. And where did
Sure.
that come from? Because that seems to be um, almost like a tinkering thing that's built in, or that you wanted to do.
Maybe. It got to a point where I was doing these tutorials and I just realized, like, if I when I finished the tutorials, like, I kind of understand how to do the thing that I just did, and that maybe I can do it again, but I don't understand what I was doing. I don't get the why behind it. I don't know.
Interesting.
I don't actually understand how these things are working. I can just do them.
You were aware that
So
you didn't know how or why,
right.
and that bothered you.
Yes, I've always had that too. I've always liked to tinker with things, and you hit on that, like, take things apart and see how they're working. And I'm almost satisfied with something working and working really well, but not quite. I need to know a little bit more. I need to know why it's doing what it's doing, and maybe there's something I can do to make it better, or something that I can do differently in the way that I'm using it to make it
Mhm.
work the way that I want it to.
For people
So that's kind
listening,
of the approach I took with. Sorry.
okay. Yeah, I apologize on Zoom here. We have this like 2 second delay where I think that I'm jumping in where you've paused, but the audio comes to you and I'm actually stepping over you. So I apologize. I'm going to learn that a little better here. So when you were doing the tutorials and you made them your own,
Mhm.
that concept, does that apply? Do you think that applies to people who aren't in programming per se, but they're getting into project management or cybersec or something?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm also kind of a jack of all trades. I touched on earlier that, I spent 30 some years trying to figure out what I was meant for, even though I basically already knew. So I did a lot of stuff, and in each of those pursuits, I kind of took things apart. I was kind of the guy that some managers love and some managers hate because you want things to be different, you want things to be better, and you're always telling your manager, this thing sucks, let's do it a little differently. Um, just so it's just tinkering, just taking stuff apart.
You then you knew what you didn't know what you didn't know, but
Yeah.
you knew that you didn't know things, and so you were became conscious of your incompetency, and
Yes.
pursuing tutorials wasn't enough. And so you also mentioned that you not only went into a boot camp, which a lot of people have done, and these days I know people give me, I did one quick boot camp, but people give me mixed reviews on promises unfulfilled, price versus value, all this stuff. So boot camp, you know, every boot camp's not the same, and that's
Right.
not what I want to focus on. But you did pursue boot camp. You said you need more help, and you also had people around you, Kenny, right, that were encouraging you.
Yes, definitely while I was going through the boot camp, for sure.
Okay.
My grandma actually fully financially supported me while I was going through
Oh,
the
that's
boot camp, so I
wonderful.
didn't have to worry about putting food on the table or paying the electric bill, and that just it was
Wow.
tremendous. Yeah,
So
I would
people
not be
invested
where I
in
am
you.
without that.
What's that?
Yeah, I said I wouldn't be where I am without my grandma helping me there, for sure.
Is that a plug for your grandma?
Definitely. She deserves every last bit of it
We'll
and
allow
more.
that.
Good, good.
Let me know if she wants royalties off this episode. Great. That's great. That's great. Um,
10%.
we need a way to contact your grandma in case she wants to help others. Just kidding.
There you go. There
That's
you go.
wonderful. Tell me quickly, kind of popcorn questions here, because we are bumping up against the clock, as they say.
Yeah.
Um, and we might have to do another one if there's more things that we want to get to. But for now, you've kind of covered your story a little bit. This is a podcast for people in their 30s and 40s who want to switch into tech. So you can be as specific or as general as you like. About what range did you switch into? You got that confidence and went through the boot camp and got into tech job per se, or the tech job you wanted. Can you give some time frame on or age around there?
I was kind of old. So let's see. Trying to remember the years now. The years are catching up to me as we speak. Um, I was in my 30s when I got into tech in general. I was actually exactly 30. I took an IT administrator role. Um, that was a role that I wanted to take. It was also the role that it was also I knew I wanted more than that. I wanted to do more than that in tech. That wasn't the end for me. That was just
Mm-hmm.
something I wanted to see and
Mm-hmm.
explore. So from there, I did that for a couple years. I got laid off from that job. I was actually disabled and got laid off at the same time. Um, so I started learning on my own and got into the boot camp. It kind of all happened at the same time. I was self-employed, working through platforms like Fiverr and Upwork, as a software developer before I got a job in tech. So that was
That's good.
another
That's gold.
that took a lot of confidence to
Sure.
say, I deserve your money.
Yep.
I'm going to solve your problem, even though I have no idea what I'm doing. So,
But you'll figure it out.
and that's not true. You're right. And I had a lot of idea of what I was doing. I definitely I wasn't ready to be a freelancer when I started being a freelancer. But, you kind of fall into things. So, if I can give anyone trying to get into tech any bit of advice, it's take that next step. If you don't know what that next step is, do some research, but don't stop yourself just because you don't know. During your research, you're going to find some steps you can take. Take one of them, even if you don't know if it's the right quote unquote next step. There are a lot of roadmaps out there, and I don't think any of them is the single best or right answer for anyone to get into tech. I think we all need our own roadmap.
Excellent. Take the next step. Everybody should write that down. I wrote it down. And if I wrote it down and I'm in a tech job, I think other people should. So you should. If you are listening in the car, don't write it down. Just pause. And then when you get somewhere, write it down. So you got into tech with a kind of stepping stone position. It wasn't your dream job to start in IT. Did you say IT admin, right, Kenny?
Yes.
Okay.
I was technically a network technician, I think they called me.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
IT technician. That's what it was.
IT technician. All right. So,
yeah.
And you're an iOS developer and CI/CD, kind of a DevOps role as well, officially and professionally now. And you've got a company that you're rolling with, and Infinite IQ Tech, right? That's the full name.
Yeah, that's the name of the company. You got it.
Thanks. Do they have any apps on the App Store or anything that people should check out, or are they not?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. No. We're working on something that's really exciting to me called AI Enigma Quest, and it's basically a text-based role-playing game. And that was the very first thing that got me into computers, was a game called Zork, text-based role-playing game. And the limitations were very apparent to me, even as a child. You type in pick up axe and you spell pick up wrong, and you're toast. It doesn't. The computer doesn't know what you're trying to do because it's based on a dictionary of certain things you can type. But the generative AI can kind of understand it. It takes I'm going to use the wrong language here, but it's almost like a human understanding, a human level understanding of the language that you're giving it. And what I'm seeing from this is just blowing my mind. I'm the one putting the stuff in place, and I'm like, wait, it can do this. This is, Brooks was testing some things and kind of had the same sort of epiphany of, wow, this is amazing. It can do this. And then he told me, and I had the same epiphany. Just I didn't know it could do that either. So it's a whole different experience in development, and it's a lot of fun. The end product's a lot of fun. So people will get a kick out of AI Quest.
This app, not the axe. Tell me about the axe that you picked up. No, this app, it's spelled like Enigma, like ENIGMA, except instead of an E, it's AI at the front, right?
Yes.
So is that where we can go on the, is it on the Apple App Store right now? Is that it?
I don't think you can find it on the App Store. It is in test flight right now. So if you go to www.ainigmaquest.com, you can sign up for the public test flight there. There's a link directly on the webpage.
Public? So anybody can test, can be like a beta tester. Is that right? For free?
Yep. You jump in there right now for absolutely free. I don't think the ads aren't even working in test flight. So
wow,
you don't have to look at any ads. You can just play this thing and take all the money out of our wallet.
Well, after this, Kenny, get ready for the servers to go down.
All right, I'm ready.
You're gonna have too many beta testers. Yeah, this is good.
No such thing. Bring it on.
I love that. I love that. All right. Well, yes. That is awesome. And you're right. I mean, if anyone's listening thinking this this game sounds interesting, it is really cool. So check it out. And if you do check it out, make sure you put in go to the website AI Enigma. What's the website again?
I believe it's ainigmaquest.com.
Okay. You're checking it right now.
Yes, it is.
I bet. AI Enigma Quest.com.
Yes.
become a beta tester, and see if you can play a game with a SpongeBob theme. Try that. Or Lord of the Rings theme. Text-based adventure.
Nice.
Very cool. Popcorn here as we're almost at the end. And question. And you have to give, or do you agree, Kenny, to give quick answers? Like you can't
Quick,
think.
yes.
No thinking
Oh no.
allowed.
Okay. All
Okay.
right. Popcorn. Got it.
All
Okay.
right. And if well, in the post, I will make sure anything that comes out of your mouth that isn't appropriate for 18 and under will be deleted. So don't worry. Just say it. All right. Here
Okay.
we go.
Blurred it out.
Best thing about being a programmer.
Writing code, solving problems.
Okay. Worst thing about daily life as a programmer.
You know,
You stumped.
writing code and solving problems. It's just it's it's kind of the both. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
It does both.
Okay. Confidence level 1 to 10 as a programmer when you started.
Way too high. Probably like 8. When I actually started as a professional, yeah, until my first day where it quickly became a 2 or 3.
I see. I see. Confidence level today as a programmer.
6. Yeah, I don't know. I've started doing so I was in the DevOps world for uh at least a year and a half solid. Just started doing feature work again, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Someone else help me. I'm asking you for help all the time. You know that.
You gave another answer to a popcorn question, and you said basically the answer is to advice for anyone trying to get into tech is. Do you remember what you said? Get it right here. If you don't, I wrote it down.
Oh, was it
Take
taking the next step?
take the next step.
Take the next
All
step.
right. So you
Yeah,
answered that without knowing it was going to be a question, or maybe
that's
you
good.
did. Maybe we're in
I
the
had no
simulation, Kenny.
Maybe.
Let's see. And any let's see. I am wondering what sort of advice for somebody who has gone through a boot camp and hasn't gotten a job yet. Kind of land as this as the last question. I'm trying to get a sense from you on if you have advice. They're stuck and they really feel they don't even want to take the next step. What should they do?
Boy. So if
Or what
they
do you
don't
want to
want to
tell
take the
them?
next step, they really don't want to hear this. But again, it's take the next step. So
So they should still push
it's
on,
keep pushing, keep pushing, keep
even if they don't
pushing,
feel
keep
like
pushing,
it.
keep pushing. Even if you don't feel like it. Oh, there were so many interviews that I didn't even want to show up to, and I
Okay.
showed up.
Mm.
I so after boot camp, I spent a very long time. I don't even know anymore. I spent a very long time interviewing and many days and with many companies. Got through many rounds and very close to being hired on many jobs, and it can take a really long time. And I had somewhat of a reputation. A lot of people I interviewed with said, "Hey, I read your Medium post," and I'm like, "Great, hire me."
Nice.
You know, but,
Okay.
yeah, keep pushing.
Keep pushing, and because that's the way you do it. Yeah, that's very good,
Yeah.
Kenny. All right. Any last thing you want to say? We got like 30 seconds.
Uh, no, I got you for you.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I didn't pay the big bucks to Zoom, so that's why I say 30 seconds. It's actually a minute 31, but I lied to you. Apologize. So, since you didn't take the 30 seconds, I will by just telling you how you didn't take 30 seconds. So
Gee, okay.
I want to thank you for coming on this show, if we can call it that, the episode. Um, I really appreciate you and all you do and who you are. And this has been helpful to me. And I think it's been really helpful to our listeners. So thank you so much, Kenny.
I really hope it is helpful, and thank you for having me, Brooks. I truly, genuinely appreciate you, and I hope you know that. As much as I ask you for help, I really hope you know that.
Oh, Yeah, we have a cordial feeling here, I'm sure. So, this has been a good episode with Kenny Dubroff, developer out of the West Coast in the Silicon Valley. And if you want to get more information, AIenigmaQuest.com. Sign up as a beta tester of his new game. And that's all for this episode. And thank you for tuning in. How to Switch to a Tech Career in Your 30s and 40s is the podcast that tries to help you switch into a tech career, no matter what your background is, give you some support and some encouragement along the way. Now, if you're stuck and you need some help, give me an email at info@techlead.com, info@tekleed.com, all spelled wrong. Until next time, my name is Brooks Haynes, and I've been your host today, and I thank you for listening. From the shores of the Vermilion River in southeastern Minnesota, have a good day.